This is Mike with the Watchman News. I'm bringing you an interview that was recorded yesterday of Ammon Bundy on behalf of Revolution Radio and Redoubt News. And this interview is about 20 minutes long, and I think it does a good job of explaining a lot of the things going on out there. So without further ado, this is Redoubt News reporting on the ground on behalf of Revolution Radio.
Stand for the Constitution, because they took an oath to do that, and begin to protect their rights. Because all it takes is a sheriff saying, "Hey, you're not going to do that in my county. You're not going to break the law. I'm going to uphold the Constitution. So don't do that." And literally, that works. And then, if they can do that, then the proper protection is done. And if they will not do that, meaning the sheriff and the commissioners, then we promised her that we would come and stand with her as well.
Okay. So basically, you're simply teaching, your cause is to teach Constitution and what people's rights are and how to be free.
Yeah, that's part of it, and get people to begin acting on their own.
Okay.
To begin with the knowledge and with the example and the understanding, to begin acting on their own rights, and then hopefully others around them will get to begin acting so that they can protect each other's rights.
Okay. I'm going to read one here. It says, a leader of the group, Oath Keepers, past and present members of military, first responders, police officers who pledged to uphold the Constitution, issued a statement saying Ammon Bundy has gone too far. Do you know what they're talking about on that?
It's interesting because that group that he's talking about, or whoever wrote it, they did issue something, but then later they came to me and they said they were wrong, and they are here now working with us.
The reason I brought that up is because when you told me to look around and talk with people, we happened to be talking with one of those guys, and a couple of the boys came in and says, "We're here to support you in any way that you can."
Yeah.
And I read that and I say, something's conflictive of what really is happening here.
Yeah. Well, when we came in here, and we come in here peacefully. I don't know that. I mean, I haven't packed a gun since I walked in here. I haven't packed a gun for weeks when I went shooting with my family. And we walked in here, but because of the media and their slant on everything, they made it act like we just raided a federal courthouse or something like that. And
yeah, exactly.
And so everybody stepped back and go, "Whoa, what is going on? He's gone too far. He's fallen off his rocker." But then, as they began to understand the truth of what was happening, all of a sudden here they now come rushing in, because they believe in this. What we're doing is right. They understand the principles that we're standing on, and how we are being the lawful ones, and that there is no future the other way. The future is this way, meaning standing in this way for what is right. And so I'm not surprised they reported it that way, because they conveniently left off that now all of those groups are fully in support and have sent men and supplies and finances and everything in this effort.
Okay. Two things I would like to ask. It's about this particular refuge here. It says you're occupying, armed men occupying it. You guys are using it. I don't see anybody here kicking you out. I don't see anybody out there saying if you guys don't leave. What's the deal?
Well, the interesting thing, besides the sheriff, not the sheriff, well, the sheriff and the county sheriff and the judge, and supposedly this is under their, understanding, this is a federal building. We have not had any federal official tell us to leave. None. Not one.
Or even ask kindly?
Not even ask kindly. Not that we would if they asked, but they have not asked us to leave. Not one federal official has asked us to leave.
Okay, so they don't mind you using it, seems to me.
Well, the thing is, you gotta get right. In Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the Constitution, right? It outlines the rules that the federal government must follow in order to lawfully administer, own, or control land and resources inside the state.
Okay.
Okay? So we're gonna get a little technical here. And the rules are this. In order for them to lawfully, according to the supreme law of the land, according to the Constitution, own this land, they would have had to first go get consent from the state legislatures.
Okay.
Okay? They actually have to go to the state legislatures and get them to pass permission, consent, for the federal government to own this land. Second, they have to purchase it from the rightful owner. So if it's private or if it's state or county, whatever, they have to purchase it. And third, they can only use it for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. Okay? Those are the rules. And that was because, remember, the purpose of the federal government is to protect the states from the outside world. So anything that is not conducive to that, such as military bases, dockyards, they're not supposed to own that land inside a state. Okay, so they have been holding this land unconstitutionally, unlawfully, for many, many years. And according to the supreme law of the land, they do not have rights or permission from the people to be here doing what they're doing. And so we come in as the people, and we begin to use this facility, and we've used this facility to do what? To promote freedom, to promote liberty.
Upholding the Constitution.
Upholding the Constitution. When this building from its very beginnings has been a tool to oppress people, to put chains on them. And actually has this refuge is 187,000 acres. It's 50 miles long, 40 miles wide. And it has taken over 100 ranches to make. And literally so that means 100 families that came out here and established their rights in ranching were pushed out through, condemning of land, flooding,
which is
courts,
what they were trying to do to the Hammonds.
yeah, through the prosecution, yeah. They're trying to take their ranch so they can add their ranch to the refuge. And this is what they've been doing for many, many, many years. And so we came in, we put a stop to it. We're not going to allow them to continue to destroy families, to destroy heritages, to destroy property, and just let it become the normal.
Okay. One last question, and maybe this one goes. You were having an interview with Megyn Kelly on Fox News. You guys were talking about the suit against the Hammonds.
Yeah.
And you asked her who the plaintiff was.
Right.
And she denied the answer. She says it was her show. She asked the questions, and you can ask all the questions you want or direct it however you want on this show. That's what we're trying to do, is get the truth. Why was that so important that we knew who the plaintiff was?
Well, so she, kind of the narrative was or the dialogue was, she asked me, well, it sure looks like the Hammonds, received due process, and that they have been basically found guilty, and now they're, and there's a tremendous amount to that. And then I asked her who the plaintiff was, and then she paused, and it was kind of, no one was going to answer, because I meant for her to ask that. I mean, that was my point. My point is here you have a federal agency, right,
Okay.
that is that it wants the Hammonds' land. Okay, it's very clear they've tried to acquire it for many years. Then they tried to push them off through taking of their water, fencing off their access. All of those things have happened, so they tried to put them in duress. And now they're using the tactics of prosecuting. Okay, so here the federal agency wants it. Now, who's the plaintiff in the prosecution? The federal government.
Okay.
Who's the judge? The federal government. Who selects the jury? The federal government. Who makes the court rules? The federal government. Who lays the laws and codes that they're trying to enforce? The federal government. And
Cards are stacked.
yeah, it's injustice. In fact, according to the American Land Rights, there's been over 100,000 cases that have been the federal government against individuals on land rights issues. And guess how many of those the individuals won out of 100,000? Zero. Zero. Every one of them sided with the federal government. Okay, because it's stacked against them. And my dad explains it the best, I think. He says going into a federal court on these land issues is like a man coming into your home and abusing your wife and children. And so you want justice, and you take him to court. And when you're there, you're thinking you're going to get justice, and they say, all rise for the honorable judge. And a man walks in a black robe, and it's the very man that abused your wife and children. That's how it is. There is no justice found in the federal court system. There hasn't been for a long time. And that is one of the reasons why we're here. Because the people are in a very precarious situation. And it's not the first time in history that a people have been put in this very same scenario. And if we do not take action, it will end up going down the same path that they went down.
Do you find, though, that the people are so blinded and so misled that they can't see?
Those in the system are, for sure. Okay, those that are in the system employed by, I hate to say generalize, because that's not all true. There are most that we see in the system are blinded, right?
Okay.
But outside of it, they're kind of in kind of question, if you will. But then those that are, understand the land issues, business owners that have to actually produce and make an income for themselves, they fully understand this. And they see where the federal government is coming down into every industry. It's come down into the auto industry, the banking industry, the finance industry, coming down into the housing industry, into the healthcare industry. And they're literally going down in there. They've identified where the wealth is, and they've come through their codes and regulations. They've identified it and grabbed hold of that and just sucked the wealth right out. And so it leaving very little for the business owner, for the employer really, and for the product to be able to make a profit. And that's what they're doing.
It's just basically strangulating their own people.
I like to call them modern day conquerors. They found a very deceptive way to come down and conquer. Because conquerors, all they did is they went in and they controlled the land and resources, and then they controlled the people.
Right.
Okay. Well, that's all they're doing. They've come down in and controlled the land and the resources, the industries, and therefore they can control the people. They're plundering upon the American people's wealth.
Okay. Is there any question that I haven't asked you that I should be asking you?
I don't think so. You've done a pretty good job. It just, if I could emphasize again that point that all wealth is generated from the earth. That everything that we have, everything that we benefit from man comes from the earth. And our clothing, our food, our houses, our comfort, our vehicles, our phones, all of that came from the earth. All of those resources to make those things came from the earth. And whoever controls the land and the resources has full control of the people. And our founders understood that it was the only safe place for the land and the resources was distributed into the people's hands, into the individuals, that it was not safe in one entity, whether it's corporation, whether it's government, or whether it's just an individual that owns tons of. It wasn't safe there, because then the people couldn't access it, they couldn't use it and benefit from it, and it would hinder their pursuit of happiness.
Okay.
And so, I'll just leave with that. We must protect the land and the resources, or we do not have a future.
Okay. Very good. Appreciate it. This is, once again, Don Allen Rico with On-Q Viewpoint. We've been with Ammon Bundy just to kind of get some of the meat and potatoes of what's really going on. Thank you for letting us come out and be with you.
Thank you.
And we'll do it again sometime.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks.
A few more questions?
Sure.
Oh, bless
You
your
have
heart.
to take this.
I have to take that? Okay. Just to let everybody know, we are readoutnews.com out of North Idaho. And we're teaming up here with Revolution Radio and You Are Live.
Excellent.
So, I kind of want to talk a little bit more about the town.
Okay.
In the week that I've been here, it does seem like there is a shift towards your position.
Absolutely.
There's still a division.
There's always going to be a division.
You know, but I think it's actually swung the pendulum a little bit past the halfway point at this time. You wouldn't necessarily see it from last night's meeting. You know,
Go.
last night's meeting, I see that they really kind of tried to stop your First Amendment rights and
Yeah.
wouldn't let you speak and things like that. Do you want to respond to that?
Well, the interesting thing is, and most people don't understand this, but there was another meeting where there was over 400 people there, and they were in, open support of what we're doing. And the county, well, Grasty, I shouldn't say the county, but because Judge Grasty and the sheriff, they held another meeting, and they even moved it up an hour so that they could try to pull from the meeting we were having. And so the people that were there at that meeting would have been the worst group of people that you could ever have. However, there was still over half of the people, well over half of the people at their meeting that was still in support of us. So the way that we can assess this is there was about 100 people that are pretty loud against what we were doing there in that meeting. But there was probably around 600 people that were there all together, and 500 of them were in support. And at least in some measure, and many of them in very open support. So, the tide has definitely turned. And people are beginning to understand why we're here and taking hope in that we might get some things done here that need to be done.
I think the first meeting you were referring to, I think a lot of people learned some of the power that they have that they never knew that they had. And I think that goes back to the government-controlled schools. Personally, that's what I think.
Yeah.
They don't teach that.
Yeah.
Is that the key to all of these issues, you think, is teaching the Constitution in school again the way they used to?
Well, that's the key to maintaining it. But the problem is we have deteriorated to the point where we have to do some restoration before we can just maintain. Because we can't maintain where we're at. It's unsustainable. And so that's what we're doing here. We're getting the rancher back to ranching, the logger back to logging, miner back to mining. We're setting this example of how the federal government does not have control to come down into the states and to control its industries and to control the people. And that they need to go back up to their cage in Washington, D.C. and begin protecting the people from the outside world, which is their job to do. And that's what we're doing here. We're basically enforcing those things. And we're either going to get it done or they're going to kill us. And that's because we can't just pass it on to our children the way it is. It will not work. It will be much more detrimental to leave it alone than to take care of it now. Because in the future it'll get to where, like all bad things, it'll get to where you can't correct it without, bloodshed. And I think we have a chance to get it done without that.
I know it started with the Hammonds and it has extended to the county residents. The discussion part of it around town last night and this morning, if the Hammonds were released, would you leave?
That would be a real good start. And we intend on getting the Hammonds released. That's why we're here, one of the reasons. However, the Hammonds are a symptom of a bigger problem. And if we just left at that, if all the people just ended and left at that, it would certainly happen again. One is the Hammond case itself is setting a precedence. A precedence that the federal government can abuse.
Thank you.
The federal government can abuse people's, and intimidate them for speaking to other people. That they can take away their property without just compensation, without a willing buyer, willing seller. That they can